The role of government. When we talk about government, we're talking about an institution that governs the society or that governs the economy. That's government. It's an institution. So let's see the role of government in an economy. Okay, here they said factors that influence the role of government. A government plays a larger role in an economy operating a mixed economic system than one operating a more market-based economic system. How much the government intervenes in mixed economies differs according to both the perceived extent of market failure and how effective government policy measures are. So, when it comes to different economic systems, we have the market economic system, we have the planned economic system, and we have the mixed economic system. The other side, a larger role in an economy operating a mixed economy, that government plays a larger role in an economy that is operating a mixed economy than one operating in a more market-oriented economy. So what they are simply saying is this. In a mixed economy, because a mixed economy means that it is combined with the public sector and the private sector. So in such sector, government takes larger roles than when the economy is strictly market. Because if the economy is market, it means it is controlled. Resource allocation is done by individuals and firms. Yes. So in a mixed economy, government still decides certain things there. And the role of government in such economy is more than that role of government in a market economy. Is it clear? Yes. So, the government's influence on the local economy. Some local areas are very dependent on particular industries. Some of these industries may be state-owned industries. In this case, the government will be making decisions such as how much to produce and the wages to pay, which directly affect the local community. The industry which are in the private sector may be subsidized by the government to, for instance, prevent unemployment rising in a relatively poor area. So what they are saying in the first paragraph is about government's influence in the local economy. In the local economy, we're talking about the locally. Yes. Government might have some parastatals, that government-owned institutions like government hospital, government schools. Yes. They are the ones that decide what to produce, and they are the ones that decide the wages paid to workers. In other words, there might be private-owned businesses in those local community or local economy that government is subsidizing. So government has impact financially on those businesses. So why would government wants to do this? Government is doing it because it will enable those private firms to be able to employ more workers, because their cost of production would be less. So they won't be out of business like they want to, because if they are out of business due to increase in cost, they will let workers, they will lay off workers, which is not good for the economy, which becomes problem for the government. Unemployment will increase. And if unemployment increases, it increases unemployment benefits to the unemployed. So government expenditures would what? Would increase. Yes. Please take note of what I'm saying here. It's important. Government's influence in local community or local economy varies. We have government having its own businesses or parastatals in that local economy. Yes. So if that happens, government decides the allocation of resources, what to produce and the wages to pay to workers in such local economy. In the other way, government might subsidize for private firms in such local economy. So if government subsidizes for private firms in that economy, government is doing that to reduce the burden on them. Mm-hmm. For example, if those private firms are incurring more cost, they might need to reduce their costs by reducing the cost of wages. If they have to reduce the cost of wages, that means they might need to lay off workers. Mm-hmm. Laying off workers increases the expenditure of government, public expenditure, because government might need to pay unemployment benefits to those unemployed. So these are the reasons why government would want to influence or wants to have impact locally. Is it clear? Yes. That is the first paragraph. The second paragraph says, some decisions on economic policies will be taken here. And the last thing I didn't talk about is, some decisions on economic policies will be taken at the local level rather than the national level. The extent to which decisions are made at the local level differ from country to country. Local governments will provide a range of goods and services, including refuse collection, libraries, housing, and local roads. To finance this, local governments may impose some taxes and charges and may receive grants from the national government. government, we have different type of government. We have government at the federal level, we have government at the state level, we have government at the local level. The government at the local level is what we call the local government or the municipalities. The municipalities of Sierra, municipalities. These municipalities, they also take decisions.
Yes.
They might be the one to provide local primary schools. They might be the one to repair or to construct roads within the streets.
Yes.
So these things are done by them. So they are financed by them. So these are the impacts of the local government in the local community too. So that is what they are saying there. I think it's clear.
Yes.
So local government can also provide goods and services for their community. Clear.
Yes.
Now go to the functions of government at local and national levels. The government carries out a range of functions. It is an owner of industries and assets such as schools and hospitals, a producer, a regulator, a collector of taxes, and a director of the level of economic activity. So government can do all these things. Government can provide goods. Government can sell services. Government will be the one to regulate. Government could be the one to provide us with education. Government could be the one to provide us with health care. Government can do all these things. But if government is doing them, we call them public goods.
Yes.
Clear. Now go to government as a producer. A government may produce products which it believes are of key importance. The products that are produced by a natural monopoly, those which it thinks are essential and hence should be available to all, and those which the private sector may underproduce or not produce. There's market failure. This is where government comes in place. Because there's market failure, market failure might be as a result of private firms not being able to produce public goods or public services. Underproduction of public goods or public services by the private firm is a market failure. So government will come in and produce these goods. Especially when government feel or think that these goods should be consumed by everybody. Merit goods like education and healthcare. These goods have to be consumed by everyone. But private sector would not provide them. You know why? Because private sector, there is what we call free rider problem. Because of free rider problems, the private sector cannot provide public goods. I think that is clear.
Yes.
So most countries seek to ensure that their key industry survives. Their key industries survive and do well. Key industries may be strategic industries or national champions. In China and France, basically, let me just state what they are trying to say here. Those industries that are strategic are those industries that hold the country. Like the petrochemical industry, the educational industry. All these industries will not be left in the hands of the private sector. Government will hold them. Government will hold them strict, tight. Because they decide the economy, they decide the fate of the people. So government will not just leave it to the hands of the private sector. I think that is clear.
Yes.
So in a number of countries, the government also stopped foreign companies from taking them over or merging with them, such as rail infrastructure which may be run or regulated by the government. Not only even for the private sectors, government would not allow multinationals to take charge of those strategic industries. Is it clear? So a government may also produce essential products such as housing on ground of equity and merit and public goods. Housing, it's important. Government will not leave it in the hands of the private sector. I think it's clear.
Yes.
So now we go to public sector contracts and partnership between the public and the private sectors. Private sector firms provide a range of products and services for the public sectors. For example, for the public sectors. For example, private sector road building firms construct and maintain roads for the government in many countries. And private pharmaceutical firms supply state healthcare system with medicines.
Like for example, Libya, right? On road.
For the road?
Yeah, firms produce like roads for the government.
Yeah. So what they are saying here is this. Government would not directly produce these roads. Government would contract it to private firms to take charge. Then the private firm will report to government. It will be financed by government, but contracted to the private firms. Because they believe that the private sector or the private firms will be more efficient than allowing the government sector to do it. Do you get it?
Yes.
In recent years, in more and more countries, the government is forming partnership with private sector firms. A common form of partnership is where the private sector initially provide the services, the finance for a state project, such as building of a hospital. The private sector firm then build it and maintain it for a number of years.